In 2025, Nigel Farage stood in front of cameras like I am now and told his supporters exactly what they should make of the Conservative Party.
Never trust a Tory.
Strong words, clear message. So here's the question. If never trust a Tory is the rule, then why is Reform UK filling themselves to the brim with them? Because over the past year, something very, very strange has happened. In the past 12 months, 40 Reform UK candidates have stopped waving that bright blue banner in their respective seats that they were elected for. But it's fair to say, those exits, they did not happen quietly. They came through expulsion, suspension, defection, and resignation. A revolving door that raises questions about Reform UK's internal structure, their discipline, and their candidate vetting. One of those MPs being Rupert Lowe, who, after allegations of misconduct and bullying towards Zia Yusef, party chairman, was referred to the police. The other of those MPs being James McMurdoch, who we all know the story about. Historic court documents came out against James, indicating that he had a previous conviction for assault against his then partner. And at the same time as all of this internal chaos, Nigel Farage and the rest of Reform UK claim to be doing something else very enthusiastically. And what is that, you ask? Well, it's welcoming ex-Conservatives with open arms. Now from here on out, I want to be clear. When I say ex-cons, I mean ex-Conservatives. I mean the same people that have shredded that dark blue rosette, but they've kept the baggage. So, despite Nigel Farage's warning of never trust a Tory, why has Reform UK become a safe haven for their disgruntled members? Let's start with Jake Berry, former minister without portfolio under the government of Liz Truss. In October 2022, just 2 weeks after that infamous mini-budget, Berry was asked on Sky News how working people are meant to cope with their soaring energy bills. His answer?
They can either cut their consumption or they can get higher salary or higher wages, go out there and get that new job.
That wasn't a slip of the tongue, that's how he thinks in the moment. This is exactly the type of politician that Nigel Farage and Reform UK claim to oppose, yet here they are welcoming him into their ranks. Then there's Jonathan Gullis, an ex-con who, let's be honest, he looks like the grown-up version of the kid from the Bully video game. Jonathan's the sort of limited thinker that treats words like woke and Marxist as interchangeable insults for anything that he doesn't like.
Mick Lynch is a Marxist who has no interest in anything other than trying to bring down the Conservative government.
Where we sadly see scumbags who fly tip their filth, where scrotes deal and shoot up their drugs.
Woke warrior teachers.
During his time after his election defeat in 2024, Gullis was on X several times poking fun at Reform UK, causing party chairman Richard Tice to turn around and say that they have embarrassing information about him. Even after all of this embarrassing embargo, Reform UK have still gone on to welcome him into their ranks. And since his 2024 election defeat, he's gone to TV several times and spoken about how he's struggled to find work.
It's been hard. Look, I'll be frank. Look, it was nearly, 3 months now and I'm still without a job.
Another ex-con hovering around Reform UK, hoping that loyalty will eventually turn into a paycheck. Next up we have Nadine Dorries. Another ex-con whose relationship with seriousness has at best been optional. All the way back in 2012, she lost the party whip for going all the way to Australia and appearing on I'm a Celeb. On I'm a Celeb, she famously ate an ostrich anus on television. A moment that somehow doubled as her lowest point and also gave us an honest metaphor for her political career. In 2023, she disappeared from Westminster and then abruptly resigned her seat, furious at being left out of Boris Johnson's resignations honours list. Critics accused her from walking away from her job entirely and her constituents. Reform, however, they welcomed her in with open arms. And then there's Anne Widdecombe.
Remember Anne Widdecombe?
The original ex-con before it was ever fashionable. A former Conservative minister, Widdecombe has spent years drifting throughout the right-wing ecosystem, going from the Conservatives to the Brexit Party and then finally at Reform. But what really sets her apart isn't her party hopping, it's her worldview. As an MEP, Widdecombe repeatedly attacked LGBT rights. In one of her most famous moments, she suggested that sexuality could be changed through faith-based or scientific intervention. Not metaphorically, not rhetorically. That's not political disagreement, that's the mindset of someone that thinks that human identity can be solved and discovered by some sort of mad scientist in a lab. If Reform UK want a physical embodiment of their political DNA, Widdecombe is it. Reactionary? certain of her own choices, and utterly convinced that modern society has gone wrong, rather than moved away from her worn-out, tired thinking. She isn't the one-off, she's the prototype. And then there's Andrew Rosendale, who is the latest defector from the Conservatives to Reform UK. This ex-con, a long-standing Tory MP, was arrested on previous allegations of sexual misconduct between the years of 2002 and 2009. After this, he disappeared from Westminster for about 2 years, with his constituents wondering when the hell he'd be going back to Parliament. Of course, during this time, he was released under investigation, and eventually the charges were dropped. When the investigation ended, Rosendale returned, but not long after, he defected to, guess who, Reform UK. A senior MP disappears for years facing no real political consequences and then quietly reappears under a new banner. Another ex-con, another quite uncomfortable question answered. And then we move on to Lee Anderson. You're going to have to give me a minute here, guys. Reform UK's first ever MP, an ex-con with quite a remarkable tolerance for contradiction. Before defecting, Anderson referred to Reform UK as not a real party and referred to Richard Tice as a pound shop Farage. Anderson began his career as a Labour councillor, was then suspended, joined the Conservatives and became the MP for Ashfield in 2019. As an MP, Anderson claimed that the cost of living crisis could be solved through batch cooking at 30p a portion, earning him the nickname
30p Lee. 30p Lee. 30p Lee.
In 2024, as a Conservative minister, Anderson lost the whip after claiming that London had been taken over by Islamists and that Sadiq Khan and Keir Starmer were basically bowing down to them. Like so many other ex-cons before and after him, Anderson obviously went on to join Reform UK. Next up we have Sarah Pochin, a former Conservative councillor and magistrate. While serving as a magistrate, she was reprimanded by the JCIO for misconduct allegations, attempting to politically influence colleagues and briefing confidentiality. Her first time in Parliament, she stood up and asked the PM to ban the burqa.
Will he, in the interests of public safety, follow the lead of France, Denmark, Belgium and others and ban the burqa?
This led to party chair Zia Yusef resigning from his position. After this, she's been heard on radio agreeing with the caller who voices annoyance in seeing different ethnicities on TV adverts.
It drives me mad when I see adverts full of black people, full of Asian people, full of, people that basically are anything.
What's wrong with that, Sarah?
White.
What's wrong with that?
Well, it doesn't reflect our society.
Another ex-con and the same damn pattern. This then moves us to homewrecker Andrea Jenkins, the current mayor of Greater Lincolnshire. While she now has a comfortable home at Reform UK, she spent her time as a Conservative MP shrouded in controversy. From having an affair with one of her married colleagues and then it breaking all over the tabloids, she also gave a positive character reference for a Conservative Party activist who made threats towards the current Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper. Culture wars over competence, noise over governance. That moves us to the first of last week's defections, Nadeem Sahawi, who famously held the office of the Chancellor of the Exchequer for a grand total of 48 hours. After the 48 hours that he held the role, he went on to endorse Liz Truss as Prime Minister.
That is a disgrace.
He then went back to endorsing Boris Johnson after Liz Truss. Boris said no, and then he ended up landing on Rishi Sunak anyway. However, he was indeed sacked as a Conservative minister after failing to declare a multi-million-pound tax settlement with HMRC. And finally, this brings us to, you guessed it, Robert Jenrick, the man that's made the most noise this past week after defecting to Reform. As Housing Secretary for the Conservatives, Robert Jenrick was one of the main people behind the government's idea to use hotels to house migrants and asylum seekers, and we both know how that's turned out in the opinion of the right wing. Whilst it was signed off at cabinet level, Jenrick was one of the most vocal people behind the move, repeatedly arguing that hotel accommodation was necessary, unavoidable, and preferred to long-term housing schemes. They became the physical symbol of everything that people on the right were angry about: immigration, government incompetence, lack of local consolation, and finally, pressure on services. All of this matters because these hotels became the flashpoint. When protests across the country erupted, they didn't happen outside of Parliament or Whitehall, they happened outside of, you guessed it, the hotels. The very policy that Jenrick helped implement became the lightning rod of public anger, the backdrop to demonstrations, disorder and public outrage. And yet, having helped make the situation, Jenrick has since gone on to become a critic of those consequences. A Conservative politician helps create a policy that fuels public anger, then pivots towards the movement that capitalises on that anger. As Housing Secretary, Jenrick also unlawfully approved a housing project that helped benefit a Tory donator.
You are someone who was involved in a row about an unlawful planning development, who has had to pay back some of his expenses, who was accused of breaking COVID rules. I'm not saying all those things...
Well, none of those things are accurate.
Well, you were involved in a row about a planning decision.
Of course, he admitted that the move was unlawful, but obviously it wasn't bias. Since losing his cabinet role, he's rebranded himself as something of a culture war figure, filming confrontation.
Excuse me, do you think it's all right not to pay?
Attacking multicultural areas.
I went to Handsworth in Birmingham the other day, and it's as close as I've come to a slum in this country. It was one of the worst integrated places that I've ever been to. In the hour and a half that I was filming with news there, I didn't see another white face.
He's rebranded himself as someone that was willing to say what others won't.
It's commonsensical that there's something fishy going on here.
Despite clashing publicly with Nigel Farage, calling him a fraud and a hypocrite, he has drifted ever so closer and closer to Reform UK. Despite all the bullshit, of course it happened, Reform UK took him in. Another ex-con, another reinvention, and another case of the problem being rebranded as the solution. So, isn't it obvious? Reform UK isn't smashing the establishment, it's recycling it. Nigel Farage and Reform UK denounced Tory failure, yet absorbed the same ex-cons that delivered it. And after all that, never trust a Tory didn't turn out to be a principle of Reform UK, it just turned out to be a slogan for the right time. So, for any of you out there that has family members that are willing to vote for Reform UK just to stick it to the establishment, I suggest you show them this video and my reasons for questioning Reform UK. The same people that are turning around saying that they're fed up of Labour and the Tories, well, if you vote this way, you're going to be getting one of those too. Are there any failed Tories that have made it into the ranks of Reform UK that I haven't mentioned? Of course there are others, but I'd love to hear what you have to say. Please, drop a comment, drop a like, drop a subscribe, and get in touch. I want to hear your thoughts. Thank you.